This is going to be a film study look at Brandon Scherff, the free agent veteran right guard who's very balanced, presents as a smart and smooth guard. Primarily played right guard to my knowledge, both in researching statistics and in all of the film that I have from 2023 and 2024. I think he offers immediate starter potential for the Ravens, Lions, and Seahawks at minimum, along with high quality pass protection. I think that's the draw here for a guy who apparently did not allow a sack in 2024. And some of the film that I will present to you here, I do have a couple of losses for him from 2023 and some interesting patterns to note in terms of how defenses either A, tried to attack him, or B, pretty much avoided him altogether. First, we'll look at some film from a battle with the Chiefs in 2023, and this is kind of what I'm talking about again. He's located at right guard, but he'll be spot shadowed prior to every snap. So the Chiefs actually inverted Chris Jones and Karlaftis on a lot of these obvious pass plays. And part of that was due to the fact that, to be honest with you, the Jags tackles were really horrible. And you can see Chris Jones getting a quite easy win here. But Scherff is a guy that just really, once he clamps down or latches on, the rep is pretty much over. I've got two, what I would say, weaknesses that I'll note based on the film that I have watched, but pass pro and immediate pass pro is not one of them, meaning he does not lose the first engagement, nor does he get set up. And let me explain that for a moment. It means the defensive tackle, or in some cases, the defensive end here, like Karlaftis, might show a particular hand move in a particular location to elicit or draw out a response from the guard. Scherff does not fall for those things. And when I say he's balanced, I mean I don't not only mean that he's very good against the run and the pass, but he's someone that stays balanced, stays tight, conservative, if you will, and doesn't overreact to what looks to be an initial first move by a pass rusher. The one weakness that I do want to discuss is that the longer the play lasts, the less impactful and active Scherff appears to me. And I'm not saying it's stamina nor lack of desire or agility. There just seems to be less impact, less clean play, ability to be involved, I guess, really, the longer the play lasts. Whereas the first few seconds or the initial engagement or two engagements, he's solid. Like I said, balance, looks totally under control. For whatever reason, and I don't know, I have a better way to describe it other than as the play continues, I find myself less impressed with Brandon Scherff. But to be fair, what are guards supposed to do if the quarterback moves around in the pocket and really, the ball is supposed to be out? The guard can't see the football, right? He's pass pro and he's working with a defensive tackle, a defensive end, maybe a blitzing inside linebacker. So he can't see that the football's not out, nor can he know where the quarterback has tried to move if he's pushed off his spot. The Jags are going with a slide protection here, and so Trevor Lawrence understands that he's got a running back on Calais Campbell and is short time, meaning eventually, probably sooner rather than later, Calais Campbell's going to win that matchup and be able to provide some pressure. Let's focus on Scherff, however, as the right guard, and this is a little bit of an extreme example of what I'm talking about. There just seems to be a time period at which I don't want to say he's done playing football, but there seems to be a time period at which he expects the ball has been out. And look, you've just got really good coverage, at least from what we see from the two receivers that are in the screen here, and then obviously a running back staying into pass pro. So no one's really open or available for Trevor Lawrence. So we're being a little bit harsh in applying this to Scherff, and I'm really not doing that. I'm not saying that this sack should be credited to him. It's certainly someone that he was involved in blocking, at least initially. Basically, at some point, if no one's open, we have what we would classify as a coverage sack. Now, Scherff was not credited or assigned any sacks in 2024, apparently. And like I said, he generally looked very good in the film that I had to study. I focused it on 2023 for a lot of reasons. Number one, because that's the film that pretty much goes through in the YouTube content ID checks and allows my videos to still maintain monetization. But also, I had a significant amount of film from the Jags in 2023 leading up to their game against the Ravens late in that season, and then also the Ravens Jags matchup from I believe week 13 or week 14. Comparing Scherff to the other guys on the Jags offensive line, there really is no comparison. He's consistent, able to execute pretty much everything that was asked of him, whereas the tackles are poor. I guess if you were being kind, you would say there was inconsistent pass pro and run blocking ability from the right tackle and left tackle. there just seemed to be a lot of plays where there was pressure on Lawrence, and it was as a result of the tackles getting beat quickly, and basically Scherff is uninvolved. So here he is against a D tackle for the Bills, and his anchor is something that you notice immediately when afforded the opportunity to display it. One on one pass pro, he's able to sit down, get his cleats screwed into the ground, and hold off that bull rush, that charge from the defensive tackle. Basically, giving the quarterback space between him, his back, and the quarterback's body such that there's a clean pocket afforded to him. Not talking about the left tackle getting beat here, but there's a clean pocket afforded to him in space such that the quarterback can follow through on his actual delivery if one of the tackles isn't getting their ass kicked like you saw right there. Along with being, I would say, almost impervious to bull rushes, you just don't out technique him. From a combat sports perspective, I would say he doesn't fall for hand feints, number one. Number two, nor do you beat him on an initial move that's a half man to a side. Now, there's a caveat there. It's a play by at the time Justin Madubuike, now Nnamdi Madubuike, that I'll show you a little bit later, is one of the two losses that I would say that I saw or have on film for Scherff. This is pretty much what you get. Again, not being moved back into the quarterback's lap. That's the one thing that I really want to note, besides the balanced nature of his play, is that there's always space between him and the quarterback, such that the quarterback, A, can step up to throw the football in this direction, or B, could possibly move out to his side. I think you're talking about a high-level pass pro guy, even as it stands right now, 33 years old, and I believe he'll turn 34 in December. He also seems to be variable in how the width of his feet after an engagement. So I'm not just talking about anchor situations, a couple of which I've shown you already, but I'm really talking about times where, for whatever reason, and I'm just not smart enough to be able to identify it for you, Scherff is able to or begins to make a conscious effort to widen his stance. And I'm not exactly sure if it's when a defender's trying to peel off to a particular side. My suspicion at times is where he knows he has help, in this case to his left, and the attacker or the pass rusher is trying to peel off in that direction. That seems to coincide with the times where I've seen him kind of widen up a little bit more than even a couple of the first examples that I showed you where he anchored down. The point is, I suspect, and again, I'm not smart enough to be able to explain it to you, that Scherff has all the moves and all the reactions during the play to be able to add 5 to 7% better protection to the pocket than you're generally getting from other average or above average guards in the NFL. Like I said earlier, I thought the matchup with the Ravens in 2023 was very instructive. Scherff played quite well in almost all situations, and that was matched up against Nnamdi Madubuike, Travis Jones, Broderick Washington, Brent Urban, and others. That game will be my focus pretty much from here on out. One of the three matchups that I'll display here with Madubuike lined up in a little bit of a wide stance, and then or widened alignment, excuse me, and then Pierce over Scherff's inside shoulder. But you can see his attention is clearly on Nnamdi Madubuike. And again, you have this ability for the quarterback to try to escape to his side. There's no real compression or condensing of the pocket against a guy who clearly in that season Madubuike was playing at an elite level compared to edge defenders in the NFL, let alone just regular defensive tackles. Scherff is a guy that handles himself well against elite competition. And I'll give you some more examples of that as we move through. Only really one run play to show you. Now, the Jags didn't run the ball a ton anyway under Peterson in 2023. I remember that game. I'm not sure how much you recall about it. They pretty much gave up on the run game because Baltimore was spectacular at stopping it and forcing you to throw the ball. From a run standpoint, Scherff is very solid. Quick and smooth, maybe not fast, but he's definitely not late in his arrival. I think for the Ravens, immediate upgrade at either guard position. For the Lions as well. Glasgow apparently is moving to centers, which slots Ragnow and Christian Mahogany as your guards. I know there's some other guys available. From a Seahawks standpoint, Gray Zabel and Christian Haynes are both young, talented guys. Zabel being an early first-round pick. I think Haynes was a third-round pick 2 drafts ago. They're both ready to contribute, or at least motivated to do so. That's part of the plan. However, I think Scherff would be an upgrade over Haynes, and I'm saying that reluctantly because look, I'm a Maryland guy. Christian Haynes is from PG County, not very far from me, and so I'm rooting for him to get opportunities and take advantage of them. But I can't lie and watch the film and say and argue with you that even at 33 years old, Scherff isn't a starter for Seattle, Baltimore, and Detroit. Like I said, minimal actual run concepts here. Pretty much everybody's working to the right in this situation. And then Brent Urban is going to kind of stunt to the inside a little bit. Scherff's going to take him over and then basically pin him down such that the running back can veer off of his backside, essentially off of a down block. The linebacker, Roquan Smith, also gets sealed off by the tackle. Very few run concepts that I would say I could use from that game that illustrated his ability. Number one, he's really good at combo blocking. He's agile, able to bump combo up to the next level, but also kind of. And the one play that I will show you, I think, is an excellent example to compare with guys like Daniel Falele. Another run concept, I'll give you 3 in this video. Once again, he's located at right guard, spot shadowed here. So he's going to pull and kick out Kyle Van Noy on this kind of F counter scheme. The tight end is following through the run lane. Pierce ends up winning his matchup with the front side guard. And then Flash is wide open here, but unfortunately because of lower body contact between Pierce and Roquan Smith, Pierce is unable to finish the play. But focusing on Scherff, trying to expand Van Noy here. You can see Van Noy doing a great job trying to get his pads below pads and not get knocked out, not get expanded and create a wider lane. Scherff is just professional, clean, smooth, even when you, as the edge defender, in this case Van Noy, are able to get your pads below his pads and basically win from a pad level standpoint. His ability to combo block solid, if unspectacular. I would almost venture to say, to use a baseball analogy, he's a guy who's going to hit a lot of doubles. He's effective at combo blocking. Sometimes may not get noticed in the film that we have that I had, but look, if he was in Detroit or in Baltimore and he's blocking for guys like Henry, Gibbs, David Montgomery, I think either of those places looks like a great option. Detroit clearly has a lot more cap space for 2025 than Baltimore does. And I think the Lions front office is more committed to building depth on the interior O-line than the Ravens have generally, or maybe they're just better at doing so overall. But the point is, this is a guy who can execute all of the run schemes that the Lions, Ravens, or Seahawks would possibly ask him to execute out on the field. An example of it here from the same game against the Ravens. Now, you do have this unique alignment that Brent Urban lines up almost a yard off the line of scrimmage. I'd like to do a Patreon video about that at some point. I have about 10 or 12 plays collected of it, of Urban and other players doing so. From a Scherff standpoint, and you will get the end zone angle here in a moment, you can see how quickly the combo occurs on Pierce, and then it's the angle, the ability to combo but go back, orient yourself in the other direction, almost like complementary or supplementary angles in geometry. Most guys, some of the average to above average guys can only combo in the same direction that their initial movement was in, and that's not Scherff. Scherff is able to combo down and then chip or ricochet back out. It doesn't get a big shot on Patrick Queen here, don't get me wrong. I'll give you the end zone angle here in a moment so you can see what I'm talking about with the angle of Scherff's blocks, or 2 blocks, as it were. So here he is on the same play, going to combo down on Pierce, the initial yellow line that you see there, allowing the center to take him over because Pierce has the center out leveraged by alignment, and then get back up to Patrick Queen. Everything, a lot of guys, particularly with the Ravens last year, could combo and then only go in this direction to pick up another combo. So if the inside linebacker had, let's say, stayed on the backside more, guys like Falele, Voorhees, even Macari would be able to seal him off if he stayed there. But if the backside inside linebacker climbed over the top, they couldn't get enough of a piece of him to impede him. And look, Scherff doesn't get a huge piece of him here. I say this is a single or maybe a walk. But the idea is that if you don't have an absolute win by Brent Urban here, you've got an excellent combo that helps the center out in handling the nose. So that would make, from a Ravens standpoint, make Tyler Linderbaum look better. Number one, and handles the backside inside linebacker from a philosophical standpoint. I've always believed, and in fact, I was taught that you've got to get great play at the point of attack by defensive linemen and the front side inside linebacker or strong safety. Don't get me wrong. But this guy, the backside inside linebacker, is to me one of the most important features of any zone scheme or gap scheme for that matter. If you can't handle the backside inside linebacker, whether it's a combo block on a zone scheme or not, you're really not ever going to be able to get anything done. And Brandon Scherff, at least in the film that I have, is a guy who consistently can get that done. Let's look at the one play against Matabike who gets him on a quick, very sudden, explosive move. Otherwise, from a technique standpoint, I think Scherff is a guy who, if he was a combat sports athlete, is going to win a lot of split decisions or unanimous decisions over a 12-round fight. Spot shadow once again at right guard, again against Matabike, who gets him on this quick, sudden rip from the inside arm, his right arm. Ball is out by Trevor Lawrence, don't get me wrong, but Matabike is able to get a violent hit on Lawrence's lower body, such that you would not want your quarterback to sustain many of those type of hits. This is about the only situation I can give you where I say the pad level ends up being a problem for Brandon Scherff from a pass pro standpoint. And it's just because really Matabike is so low to the ground with when he starts his rip, and Matabike has pinned his outside arm, Scherff's right arm, for a moment, and then now lifting it up with his right arm to get underneath and get that pass rush win, if you ask me, to get a quarterback hit on Trevor Lawrence. He's got really great timing with his strikes. This is a situation against Broderick Washington, for the Ravens. I think it's a third down completion over the middle. Great timing on his strikes generally. He's able to, for the most part, land his shot sooner than the defensive tackle expects him to. This is actually a situation where that does not occur. Broderick Washington kind of takes this outside step to this direction, and that creates enough of a space to then punch Scherff in the chest. And so Scherff doesn't actually land the first shot here. My point is, even when he doesn't, he can still anchor down and hold his ground and get a win from a pass pro standpoint, allowing the quarterback enough space and time to get the football off over the middle for a big completion against the Ravens. The last play that I'll show here that I think illustrates something I haven't mentioned that's the biggest difference between him and some of the guards he'd be competing with in Baltimore and Detroit, and that's how he handles stunts. It's just truly flawless at times. I think to compare him to the guys that would be available for the Ravens, he's 2 levels above Falele and Voorhees in handling stunts, and probably 1 level above Ben Cleveland, who I think is, at this point, recognized that his relative strength is pass protection. But neither of those 3 guys anywhere near to the level of Scherff, if you ask me. Additional to that, from a Lions standpoint, Mahogany is probably, I guess, the projected starter at guard for Detroit, with Glasgow being the center and Ratledge, the rookie, being the other guard. Mahogany's a guy who I thought struggled with some stunts at times last year. I know it had limited action. In fact, 2 starts, one in the playoffs, 1 game in the playoffs, and I think the Vikings week 18, but perhaps I'm wrong there. The point is, Scherff does not get beat by stunts. He's very balanced, conservative. He's in his lane, and he doesn't overcommit to a first move by a defensive lineman or defensive tackle, such that leaves him open to a stunt or a loop by a linebacker or a defensive tackle from the other side. You've got Matabike lined up to his side, Travis Jones to the other, and you got this kind of unique or interesting looking stunt here, a less physical version than what we've seen many times. What I just like is that Scherff allows Matabike to pull or feed him into Jones, stands Jones up, who is an absolute load from a pass rush standpoint, gets a win clean and quick, and allows Trevor Lawrence to look to that side. Pass ends up being incomplete. The point here of this video and trying to focus on Scherff is that the pass protection, I think, is a huge upgrade for all 3 of the teams from an interior offensive line standpoint. Selfishly, from a Ravens perspective, just think slotting him next to a Tyler Linderbaum. In fact, they're both from Iowa, would be a tremendous advantage, almost akin to reacquiring someone like a Kevin Zeitler. And when I make that comparison, I do so because with this in mind, someone who's good at everything. I would say Scherff's excellent in pass pro. He's not going to get overwhelmed by anyone. In fact, as I mentioned at the beginning of the lead in the video in the first couple of plays, I think that certain teams kind of moved guys away from him to create a better pass rush matchup. Now, part of that is the Jags tackles were so poor. That's a factor. Don't get me wrong. I think is a tremendous upgrade in Baltimore and Detroit from day one. Um, for the Seahawks, you do have Gray Zabel, Christian Haynes, Anthony Bradford, I think, still there as well. So you've got some young depth. I'm not sure that Seattle is looking at a guy like Scherff, but I could be wrong. They also have Josh Jones, who's a veteran tackle, can or has played some guard at times. I do think Seattle might be set at interior offensive line, and if they were going to look for O-line help, I feel like it more so could be a tackle. For the Ravens, the reality is Scherff is just, he's better than all the other guards on the roster right now, and it's really not close for the film that I have, which at this point includes 3 games from 2024. If he's on the roster, he's the best, and you're picking the best guy at right guard, and he's in the building and healthy, he's the starter. Now, my suspicion is Baltimore would actually want to maybe move him to left guard and have Falele be the right guard again, meaning if someone was going to have to make the adjustment to the other side, perhaps it would be Scherff. I think Falele's deficiencies are clear, but this would be a tremendous upgrade for that offensive line. A 5-time Pro Bowler who made an All-Pro team, I think in 2020, first team All-Pro. In fact, for Detroit, this would possibly be nice compensation at least for losing Frank Ragnow. Along with Ragnow and Sewell, you had 2 of the better players at their position across the entirety of the NFL. And Detroit is committed to having a elite offensive line. Scherff, to me, brings in immediate opportunity for a starter at right guard, and B, the option or ability to move Radlich to center if Glasgow's not good enough to get the job done. I happen to be someone who really likes Christian Mahogany, and if you are talking about having the following 4 guys as your interior offensive linemen, Scherff, Mahogany, Glasgow, and Radlich, the second round pick, that's a great group to start from, independent of the fact that Frank Ragnow just retired, which was pretty much a shock to everyone. In any case, this is my film study look at Brandon Scherff, someone who I really didn't know a lot about 72 hours ago, but took some time to create this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did or did not, please let me know in the comment section. As you may know, comments and likes really, drives the content to being exposed or pushed out to other audiences. If you're a Ravens, Seahawks, or Lions fan and you've ever given consideration to joining my Patreon, I would appreciate it if you click on one of the links in the description. For my Patreon, it gives you the pricing for a monthly pledge. As a part of that, or the big part of that, really, the draw, I would say, is being able to be invited to a team-specific Discord, Ravens, Lions, or Seahawks. It allows you to talk about the games, players, teams, and decisions in a safe environment, away from trolls, controlled environments, I should say. Perhaps not safe, but one that allows you to discuss things as you wish without the fear of social media like Facebook or Twitter or X, where fans of other teams can come on and kind of ruin the vibe. And additional to that, if you think other fans would enjoy this film study look at Brandon Scherff, albeit he's 33 years old, going to be 34 in December. If you think other fans of either team would enjoy this content, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.